Been a while since we met at that writers' conference. I hope you're doing well and writing. I've spent the last year hiding behind a computer screen, anonymously giving out advice through the online column called Dear Sugar.
Dear Sugar!
I know you read it because it's received exactly one fan letter, yours. To be honest, I don't have a passion for the gig. And as you know, I admire your work, so I'm brazenly emailing you with a job offer. Do you want to take over the column? I mean, do you want to be Sugar?
Dear Sugar!
As you know, it's anonymous, so there's no credit. On the bonuses, there's no pay. So, you in?
Hello, and thank you for the strange offer. I'm trying to finish a book. My husband is an artist. We have 2 kids and 10 mountains of debt. I can't take on. Yeah, I mean...
That's great. I'll forward you the letters.
Dear Sugar! I'm jealous of other people's success, even if I like them. When my friends get good news, I put on a smile, but I'm really thinking, why not me?
Dear Sugar, I want to make friends, and my dad's advice is just be yourself, but it's not that easy in the 8th grade, in a new school. Everyone already has their groups. Everyone already knows who they're going to pair up with in science class, and I'm stuck with the antisocial kid who picks his nose.
Dear
Dear Sugar.
I get seasick and I've got a boat trip coming up with my boss. He doesn't like me. I mean, he really doesn't like me. I don't want to go on the trip. I want to call in sick before I get on the boat and barf. What's your advice?
Dear
Dear
Sugar,
Sugar.
I'm a 70-year-old married man, and I suspect that my newly widowed neighbor is spying on me when I'm in my yard. When I'm out there pulling weeds to drive her batty, I don't wear a shirt.
Dear Sugar, I'm a 35-year-old woman. I lost my job and I'm entering into an arrangement with a married man. We will rendezvous twice a week and he will pay me $1,000 a month. I have many thoughts and questions, including, is this taxable income?
Dear Sugar.
My question is about, love. I'm at the age where most of my friends are married. The closest I've been to an altar was as best man. I've had 3 relationships, 1 casual, 1 serious, 1 current. I've had no problems with the casual one. I was upfront about not wanting to settle down. The second one started out casual, and I broke it off when she got too serious, so I lost both a lover and a friend. I've been seeing this woman for about 4 months now, and it seems like she's falling in love with me. I try to avoid using that word love. I don't like saying it out loud because it comes loaded with promises that are fragile and easily broken. My question is, when do I take the big step and tell her, I love you? And what's this love thing all about anyway? Signed. Confused.
Dear Confused. I agree. That word love is highly loaded with... I agree with you. Wow, that's helpful advice. Dear Confused. You certainly must be confused. If you're confused... that's good writing. I'll just repeat your word back to you. Please don't let the timetable by which others live their lives affect yours. No. Dear Confused. The last word my mother ever said to me was love. She was 45 and so sick and weak she couldn't muster the I or the U, but it didn't matter. That puny word has the power to stand on its own. I was 22 and I wasn't with my mom when she died. No one was. She died alone in a hospital room, and for many years it felt like my insides were frozen solid because of it. I ran it over and over in my mind, the choices I made that kept me from being beside my mother in her last hours. But thinking about it didn't do a thing. Thinking about it was a long dive into a bucket of shit that didn't have a bottom. I would never be with my mother when she died. She would never be alive again. The last thing between us would always be the last thing. There would be the way I got my coat and said, "I love you." And there would be the way she was silent until I was almost out the door and she called, "Love." And there would be the way she was lying in that bed when I returned the next morning, but dead. My mother's last word to me clanks inside me like an iron bell someone beats at dinner time. Love, 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 love. I bet you think this has nothing to do with your question, but your question and my answer are about love. Love is the feeling we have for people we care about and hold in high regard. It can be light as the hug we give a friend, or heavy as the sacrifices we make for our children. It can be fleeting, everlasting, conditional, unconditional, stoked by sex, sullied by abuse, nourished by humor. The point is, you get to define it. You get to describe that, "Oh, wow, I didn't mean to fall in love, but sort of did love you seem to have for this woman." You've convinced yourself that withholding one small word from her will shield you from getting hurt. You asked me, when do you have to take that big step and tell your girlfriend you love her? And my answer is, when you think you love her. Be brave. Brave enough to break your own heart. Tackle the motherfucking shit out of love. Look, we're all going to die. Hit that iron bell like it's dinner time. Signed, Sugar.
Dear Sugar, something's different. Who the hell are you?
Hi, I'm the new Sugar.
I knew it! Who are you?
What's your real name?
Let's keep it at Sugar.
Do you write other things?
Yes?
Are you a published author?
Yes.
Like author of a book or a blog?
I've published some things, including a novel.
So, do you write the letters for the column?
No.
Wait, the letters are real.
Yes.
All of them?
Yes.
Do you have an office? Is this your job?
No, I work from home in the afternoons when I'm supposed to be working on my next book.
Have you ever written an advice column before?
No.
Are any questions off limits?
No.
Do you like it up the ass?
No.
Can we really ask you anything?
Yes.
What's your name?
Sugar.
Dear Sugar, what the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? I'm asking this question as it applies to everything, every day. Best, WTF.
Dear Sugar, I got pregnant, and my boyfriend and me, we were excited to become parents. When I was 6.5 months pregnant, I miscarried. Since then, not a day has gone by where I don't think about who that child might have been. It was a girl. She had a name. Every day I wake up and I think my daughter would have been 6 months old today, or my daughter maybe would have started crawling today. Sometimes all I can think is the word daughter, daughter, over and over and over. I'm not sad or pissed off. I just don't care about anything. I'm numb, and I can't get past it. Most of the people in my life expect me to have moved on by now. One person even pointed out it was only a miscarriage. So now I also feel guilty for being so stuck, grieving for a child that never was. Then there's the reason I lost the baby. My doctor said it was because he thinks I was overweight. Part of me thinks the doctor was an asshole for saying that, but another part of me believes this was my fault. Sometimes I don't eat for days, other times I eat everything inside and then I throw it all up. I spend hours at the gym, just walking on that treadmill until I can't lift my legs. The rational part of me knows that if I don't do something to pull myself out of this, I'll do serious damage to myself. I know this, and yet I just don't care. I want to know how to care again. signed Stuck.
Dear Stuck, some people think they're being honest with you. Others are scared of the intensity of your loss. None of them will be helpful to you. They live on planet Earth. You live on planet my baby died. There are many women who have spent their days silently chanting daughter, daughter, or son, son to themselves. You need to find these women. They're your tribe. The healing power of even the most microscopic exchange with someone who knows in a flash precisely what you're experiencing because she has experienced that thing too cannot be overestimated. Years ago, I worked with at-risk girls in middle school. Most of them were poor white in 7th or 8th grade. My job title was youth advocate. Oh, my mission was to help the girls succeed. Success meant not getting pregnant or locked up before graduating high school. It meant eventually holding down a job. It was such a small thing, and yet it was enormous, like pushing an 18-wheeler with your pinky finger. I was afraid of them at first. They were 13 and I was 28. God, they hated everything. Everything was boring and stupid and either totally cool or totally gay. And I had to tell them why not to say the word gay to mean stupid. And they thought I was a total fag for thinking by gay they meant gay. And then I had to tell them not to say fag. And then I passed around journals I'd purchased for them.
Do we get to keep these?
Yes, open them. I asked each of them to write down 3 true things about themselves and 1 lie. And then we read them out loud, guessing which one was the lie. By the time we were halfway around the room, they all loved me intensely. Not me. How I held them with unconditional positive regard. We went places they'd never been before. A rock climbing gym and the ballet. I hoped if they witnessed the grace of live art, they wouldn't steal someone's wallet and go to jail. As they pulled themselves up a fake boulder, they'd start valuing their bodies and not get knocked up. Their dads were in prison or unknown to them or fucking them. Their moms were strung out on drugs or on the streets. The girls told me ghastly, merciless stories of sorrow and betrayal. One of the girls wore an enormous hooded sweatshirt that went down to her knees with the hood pulled up over her head. Across her face hung a dense curtain of hair. It looked like she had 2 backs of a head and no face. She told me that she slept most nights.
In a rundown wooden shack in the alley behind the apartment.
Where she lived. She did this because she...
Couldn't take staying inside.
Where her mother ranted and raved, alcoholic and mentally ill. Another girl told me that when her mom's boyfriend got mad, he
Dragged me into the yard and turned on the hose and held my face up to the ice-cold running water until I almost drowned. And then he locked me outside for 2 hours.
I told the girls that these things were unacceptable, illegal, that I would call someone and that this would stop. I called the police. I called Child Protection Services, and no one did anything. So, I told the girls something different. This will not stop. It will go on. So you have to find a place within yourself to not only escape the shit, but to transcend it. And if you aren't able to do that, then your whole life will be shit. Forever and ever and ever. You have to do more than hold on. You have to reach. And the same is true for you, Stuck, and for anyone who has ever had anything terrible happen to them. How you get unstuck is you reach. Therapy and talking with friends and support groups will help. Don't hold it inside. Get it out. Talk it out. Cry it out. But know this. Nobody else can make this right for you. You have to reach for your desire to heal. True healing is a fierce place. It is a giant place. A place of monstrous beauty and glimmering light. And you have to work really, really, really hard to get there. Years after I left that job, I was having lunch at a Taco Bell. Just as I was gathering my things to leave, a woman wearing a Taco Bell uniform approached me and said my name. It was the faceless girl who'd slept in the falling down shed. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail now. She was all grown up.
Hey,
Is that you?
I made it out, didn't I?
You did. You absolutely did. Signed, Sugar. Okay.
Dear Sugar, I'm middle-aged, married, and crushing on a friend. And it's just like in high school. Sweaty palms, distracted, giddy, the whole shebang. If we met at a different time, we'd probably be together. We spend hours talking. We're never bored. We can't stop smiling around each other. We really like each other. So far, it has gone no farther than flirting. We've never kissed, we've never crossed a physical boundary, but we really like each other. My question isn't, what should I do? I'm pretty clear I should behave, and I want to behave, I really do, but what should I do? Signed, Crushed.
Dear Crushed. That's basically every middle-aged married person. X is married to Y but wants to fuck Z. Because Z is new and is never going to bitch at you for forgetting to take out the trash. Z doesn't even care that you were late because Z doesn't wear a watch. Z is like a motorcycle with no one on it. Dazzling. Going nowhere. You're signed, Sugar.
Dear Sugar, the thought of staying in my marriage makes me feel panicky and claustrophobic. My wife and I, well, we have some things in common, but I don't feel like that's enough. I find myself fantasizing about dating other people. I'm afraid I'll get more bored as time goes on, but I'm also afraid that there's nobody out there better for me, and I should be grateful for what I have.
Dear Sugar, I want to leave my marriage, but I'm terrified of embarrassing her. I don't want to hurt her. She's my best friend. I think I love her. I'm just not in love with her.
Dear Sugar, I feel trapped and like I'm hiding the real me. I don't blame him for my discontent, but I never wanted to get married, and now I don't know how to stop this charade. I want out, but how?
Signed, afraid to leave.
Signed, I can't do this.
Signed, how can I hurt him?
Dear all of us who want to please. There was nothing wrong with my first husband. He wasn't perfect, but he was pretty close. I met him a month after I turned 19, and I married him on a rash and romantic impulse the month before I turned 20. But there was in me an awful thing from almost the very beginning, a small, clear voice that would not, no matter what I did, would not stop saying, go. Go, even though you love him. Go, even though he's kind and faithful and dear to you. Go, even though he's your best friend and you're his. Go, even though your friends will be disappointed or surprised or pissed off or all three. Go, even though you once said you would stay. Go, even though you're afraid of being alone. Go, even though there's nowhere to go. Go because you want to. Because wanting to leave is enough. Get a pen. Write that last sentence on your palm, then read it over and over again until your tears have washed it away. When it came to my first marriage, I tried to be good. I tried to be bad. I was sad and scared and self-sacrificing and ultimately self-destructive. I finally cheated on my former husband because I didn't have the guts to tell him I wanted out. I loved him too much to make a clean break, so I botched the job and made it dirty instead. Divorcing him was the most excruciating decision I've ever made. But I wasn't the only one whose life was better. He deserved the love of a woman without the word go whispering like a deranged ghost in her ear. We all know when we need to, want to, must go. I only ask, will you do it later or will you do it now? Signed, Sugar.
No.
Dear Sugar, we still don't know who the hell you are, and seriously? Who the hell do you think you are? This week you're telling people to leave their marriages? Last week it was the opposite. You said don't have an affair. You said don't be X fucking Z or you'll turn into a motorcycle. What the hell you trying to make us do? Signed, not buying it.
Dear, not buying it. My goal isn't to make anyone do anything. I'm offering advice based on my personal experience.
Oh, wow. Did you just make this about you?
Are you a therapist?
No.
Are you in therapy?
No.
Oh, are you even qualified for this gig?
Dear Sugar, your advice is all over the place. How can you suggest in one column that we stick to convention and then in the very next one say we gotta be bold? Make up your mind! Whatever, why am I trying to figure out who you are? Do you even know who you are? Make a choice. Pick a lane! Signed, still not buying it. Jesus Christ.
Dear, still not buying it. Years ago, I was in a cafe with the man who is now my husband. We'd only been lovers for a month, but we were already in deep, thick in the thrall of you tell me everything and I'll tell you everything because I love you so madly stage. On this day, I was telling him about my divorce, then my months of heroin use, which led to the tale of how I'd gotten pregnant by a heroin addict and how I'd felt so angry about having an abortion that I'd intentionally sliced a line in my arm with a knife. He stopped me. He said,
Don't get me wrong. I want to know everything about you. But you don't have to say any of this to get me to love you. You don't have to be broken for me.
I remember the moment precisely. It wasn't a good feeling. I never realized that I thought in order to get a man to love me that I had to appear to be broken for him. But when he said it, I recognized it. Here was a man, a good, kind, compassionate man, finally calling me out.
You don't have to be broken for me.
I didn't have to be broken for him, even though parts of me were. I realized I could be every piece of myself. I could be vulnerable and strong, fearful and fearless. I could be everything I was and wanted to be, and that things could be valid and yet contradictions of each other was the unification of the ancient and future parts of me. In that moment I was open. I was bare. I will be open with you. I will be bare. I will show you my brokenness and my strengths, and I will do my best to offer my best, tough, sweet, and even occasionally contradicting advice. I don't know if my unorthodox approach is right or wrong. Sure, advice columnists are supposed to position themselves as the ones who know. I am not that person. I am the one who doesn't know, but who will work really, really hard to see what I can find. This is who I am. Tell me, who are you? Sign. Yours. Sugar.
Dear Sugar.
Dear Sugar.
Dear
Dear
Sugar.
Sugar, I was injured in an accident that hurt my spine, and now
Sugar.
I'm secretly addicted to
Dear
pain
Sugar,
meds.
I'm terrified of my violent older brother who has terrorized me
Dear
since
Dear
we were kids.
Sugar, icky thoughts turn me on. I have
Dear
these
Sugar.
repulsive thoughts
Sugar.
of men
Sugar.
taking me aggressively and my being
Dear
submissive
Sugar,
to
my
them
wife
in bed.
drinks while I'm at work, and when I get home, she thinks I can't tell.
Dear Sugar, my daughter has a tumor and is going into surgery tomorrow, and I find myself doubting the existence of God.
Dear Sugar, my birth mother doesn't want to meet me.
Dear Sugar, what the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? I'm asking this question as it applies to everything, every day. Best, WTF.
Dear Sugar, I'm 34 years old and I'm non-binary. I was assigned male at birth, but I always knew that I existed somewhere in between a man and a woman. I had the usual painful childhood and adolescence in a smallish town because I was different, picked on by other kids, misunderstood by my family. 7 years ago, I told my mom and my dad I intended on having hormone replacement therapy. They were furious. They said the worst things you can imagine saying to another human being, let alone if that human being is your child. So in response, I cut them out of my life and moved away to live a new life as a queer person. I have friends and romance in my life. I love my job. I'm happy with the life that I've made. Then, after years of no communication, I get this email from my parents that blew my mind. They said that they were sorry, that they didn't understand me, and that now they do. They said that they loved me. Sugar, they want me back. Well, I cried like crazy when I read that. And that surprised me. I thought I didn't love my parents anymore. I've made an island for myself, safe from my past. I've made it without them. And I've done this because I'm tough. What should I do? Do I forgive my parents? Or do I ignore them and stay safe on my island? Signed, Orphan.
Dear orphan, forgive your parents. Not for them, for you. You've remade yourself. You and your mom and your dad can remake this too. The new era in which they're finally capable of loving the authentic you. What they did to you 7 years ago is terrible. They now know that. Here's the difference between your parents and so many other parents who have tried to remain in the lives of their children after a time of abuse or trauma. They're sorry. They're more sorry than most. Your parents have grown and changed and come to understand things that confounded them before. Refusing to accept them for the people they are is no different than them refusing to accept you for who you are. It's not tough. It's weak. You've had to ask yourself impossible questions, endure humiliations, and redefine your life in ways most people can't even imagine. But you know what? So have your parents. When you needed them, they were drowning in their own fear. They're not drowning anymore. They swam to shore. They've arrived at last on your island. Oh, welcome them. Yours, Sugar.
Dear Sugar, 4 years ago, I was raped. Anger and panic became a deep part of my life and almost dragged me under. It took a long time, but I finally pulled myself up and onward. I feel it's behind me, and I am over it. Well, I have been dating this great guy for about 1.5 years. We have a healthy and positive relationship. Do I tell him about my sexual assault? Do I need to? We've been through some stuff, but I don't know if he's capable of hearing about this. I worry it might freak him out and affect our relationship. I need your advice. Signed, Whitell.
Dear Whitell, I asked a friend, a talented painter, how she recovered from being sexually assaulted, how she resumed having sexual healthy relationships with men, how she continued to go on to be a talented painter and live a full life. She told me that we get to decide who we allow to influence us. She said I could allow myself to be influenced by a man who screwed me against my will, or I could allow myself to be influenced by Van Gogh. I chose Van Gogh. You chose Van Gogh too. I salute you for making your way through your experience to this side of it. But you have a secret within you. Keeping this trauma from your boyfriend doesn't let him know what a warrior you are. We need to let the people who love us see what made us. Tell your boyfriend about your sexual assault, how it happened, how you suffered, how you made your way through it, how you feel about it now. Tell him. Otherwise, it creates the burden of a secret you are too wonderful to keep. Yours, Sugar.
Dear Sugar, one of the general mysteries of life is that I do not know what something will become until I've lived it. Will you please give us an example of something you thought was one thing that became another? Signed, Curious.
Dear Curious, the summer I was 18, I was driving down a country road with my mother when we stopped at a yard sale. There was nothing much of interest at the sale, but the moment before I was about to suggest we leave, something caught my eye. A red velvet dress trimmed with white lace fit for a toddler. I was pretty certain at that moment that I would never be a mother myself. Children were fine, but ultimately annoying. I wanted more out of life, and yet ridiculously and inexplicably, I wanted that red dress. Something about it called powerfully to me. Oh, my mother picked it up.
You want this dress? For someday.
But I'm not even going to have kids.
You can put it in a box, then you'll have it no matter what you decide.
I don't have $1.
I do.
3 years later, I'd be standing in a field not far from that sale holding the ashes of my mother's body in my palms. My mother was gone. The red dress was still with me, packed in a cedar box that had belonged to her. I dragged it with me all the way along the scorching trail of my 20s and into my 30s when I had 2 children, a son and then a daughter. The red dress was a secret only known by me, buried for years among my mother's best things. When I unearthed it and held it again, it was like being slapped and kissed at the same time. Like the volume was being turned way up and also way down. The 2 things that were true about its existence had an opposite effect and were yet the same single fact. My mother bought a dress for the granddaughter she'll never know. My mother bought a dress for the granddaughter she'll never know. How beautiful, how ugly, how little, how big, how painful, how sweet. It's seldom that we can draw a direct line between this and that. My desire to buy the dress was made meaningful only by my mother's death and my daughter's birth. It was the material evidence of my loss, but also of how my mother's love had carried me forth beyond her, her life extending years into my own in ways I never could have imagined in the moment the red dress caught my eye. And seeing my daughter on the second Christmas of her life wearing the dress the grandmother she would never meet bought for her returned something to me I thought had been lost forever. We cannot possibly know what will manifest in our lives. We live and have experiences. We leave people we love and get left by them. People we thought would be in our lives forever aren't. And people we didn't know would come into our lives do. Our work here is to keep faith with that, to put it in a box and wait, to trust that someday we will know what it means, so that when the ordinary miraculous is revealed to us, we'll be there, standing before the baby girl in the pretty dress, grateful for the smallest things. Yours, Sugar.
Dear Sugar,
Dear Sugar.
Dear Sugar.
Dear Sugar, if it's
Sugar.
true that drug addicts stopped maturing the same time they started using, then the same thing happens at weddings.
Dear Sugar, I'm worried I will die alone.
Dear Sugar, when it comes to holding down a job, I'm the worst.
Dear Sugar, I think I'm attracted to my teacher.
Dear Sugar, are you there?
Dear Sugar, where are
Dear
you?
Sugar, why won't you answer me?
Dear Sugar, my roommate is selfish. Hey, are you ever gonna answer me?
Dear Sugar, kind of crazy, but my girlfriend is seriously turned on by Santa Claus. The old dude, big belly, white beard, the power to find out if you're naughty or nice, the whole thing just gets her going. It's our first Christmas together. She told me about the fantasy when Santa started to pop up all over the place. She gets especially turned on when she sees an actual Santa, and she starts thinking about sitting in his lap and what could happen next. You get the picture. So here's my question. My sister has 2 young sons. A few years ago, she bought a Santa suit, and I've been dressing up in it and going over to her place to give my nephews a thrill on Christmas Eve. Anyway, it occurred to me that if I keep the suit for a bit, I could give my girlfriend a thrill too. Creepy? Good idea? Bad idea? What do you make of this plan? Thanks. Sexy Santa.
Dear Sexy Santa, your giving spirit is genuinely what the holiday season is all about.
Oh!
I say stuff that woman's stocking the way only Santa knows how. Yours, Sugar.
Dear Sugar, I dated this girl for a while until I realized she was self-absorbed, so I dumped her. And she became another one of my crazy exes. She had a fight with her best friend. They stopped being friends. That ex-best friend of my ex called me to hang out. I ended up banging her.
Okay.
So, after a few days, she tells me that she's engaged to be married. She's wearing this weird short hair wig while she breaks up with me. But the thing is, I connected more with her in 3 days than I did with my ex in months. Please, tell me what I should do. Which woman should I be with? I am not a smart man. But I do know what love is. Signed, Gump.
Dear Gump, I keep politics out of this column, but just this once, let's recall when former Secretary of Defense, the late Donald Rumsfeld, quite wisely said something like, "There are no knowns. These are the things we know we know. And there are known unknowns. These are the things we know we do not know. But there are also unknown unknowns. These are the things we do not know we do not know." When it comes to your triangular quagmire, let's start with the known knowns. These are the things you know you know. A.
I didn't want to fuck my girlfriend anymore, so I dumped her.
B.
I fucked my ex-girlfriend's ex-best friend for 3 days. Things were good.
C.
She breaks up with me and tells me she doesn't want to fuck anymore.
Which leads us to the known unknowns, the things you know you do not know. A.
How come so many of my exes are crazy?
B.
Was she really engaged? Or was she just trying to shake me?
C.
Why the wig?
Yeah, why the wig? Which leads us to the unknown unknowns, the things you don't know you don't know. You don't have a future with either of these women. B. Neither of them is even thinking about you. C. And yet you are loved. You wrote to me with your scared, searching, knuckle-headed heart on full display. It takes a lot to be that brave, and you are. So I love you. And the only advice I have for you is go find yourself another girlfriend. Yours, Sugar.
Dear Sugar, my sister has been in hospice care for 6 months.
Dear Sugar, he said he only hired me because he was attracted
Dear
to
Sugar, my 2 sons, ages 35 and 31, have returned to the nest. My home,
Sugar,
they didn't
Dear
ask.
Sugar, dear Sugar,
Dear Sugar.
I was born with a rare blood disorder that has left me with physical deformities.
Dear Sugar! What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? I'm asking this question as it applies to everything, every day. Best, what the fuck?
Dear what the fuck? My father's father made me jack him off when I was 3 and 4 and 5. I wasn't any good at it. My hands were too small. I couldn't get the rhythm right. And I didn't understand what I was doing. Only knew I didn't want to do it. Knew that it made me feel miserable and anxious in a way so sickeningly particular that I can feel that particular sickness rising this very moment in my throat. I hated having to rub my grandfather's cock, but there was nothing I could do. I had to do it. My grandfather babysat my sister and me a couple times a week, and most of the days I was trapped in his house with him. He would pull his already getting hard penis out of his pants and say, "Come here," and that was that. I moved far away from him when I was nearly 6. Soon after that, my parents split up and my father left my life, so I never saw my grandfather again. He died of black lung disease when he was 66 and I was 15. When I learned he died, I wasn't sad. I wasn't happy either. He was no one to me. And yet he was always there. The force of him and what he made me do moving through me like a dark river. For years I didn't say a word about it to anyone. I hoped silence would make it disappear. But it didn't. So I railed against it, in search of the answer to what the fuck was up with my grandfather doing that to me. But I could never shake it. That particular fuck would not be shook. Asking what the fuck only brought it around. Around and around it went. My grandfather's cock in my hands, the memory of it so vivid, so palpable, so very much a part of me. It came to me during sex and not during sex. It came to me in flashes and it came to me in dreams. It came to me one day when I found a baby bird that had fallen from a nest. I'd always heard you're not supposed to pick up baby birds, that once you touch them, their mama won't come back and get them. But it doesn't matter whether that's true or not. I knew there was only one humane thing to do. I put the baby bird in a paper bag and I smothered it with my hands. Nothing that has died in my life has ever died easily, and this bird was no exception. I could feel it through the paper bag pulsing against my hand, rearing up simultaneously, flaccid and ferocious, beneath its translucent sheen of skin, precisely as my grandfather's cock had been. There it was! There it was again. The ghost of that old man's cock would always be in my hands. But I understood what I was doing this time. Understood that I had to press harder than I could bear. It had to die. Pressing harder was murder. It was mercy. That's what the fuck it was. The fuck was mine. And the fuck is yours too. That question does not apply to everything every day. If it does, you're wasting your life. If it does, you're a lazy coward, and you are not a lazy coward. Ask better questions. What the fuck is your life? Answer it. Yours, Sugar.
Dear Sugar, my father is a narcissist. Violent, volatile, manipulative, and charming. If I wasn't cheerful enough, he'd lock me in a room for days. If I told a joke, he would yell and curse at me. My father would denounce me as his child over the slightest disagreements. And when he decided everything was fine again, I was expected to accept his change of heart. No apologies offered, unless, of course, they were mine. And yet, I tried so hard to make him proud, to make him care. He was my dad, after all. Even now, it's not any different. He's so consumed by his image that when he found out that my therapist, a kind, understanding, sympathetic counselor, was a woman that he knew, he insisted that I stop seeing her. But 3 months ago, he went too far. He betrayed my mother, and I was a fucking bitch for finding out about his infidelity. People say that family is everything, that it is my duty to forgive the man who gave me life and to keep him in my life. He's the only father I'll ever have. But is it worth the pain? Signed. When is too much too much?
Dear, too much, no. Maintaining a relationship with your abusive father is not worth it. Yes, he is the only father you will ever have, but that does not give him the right to abuse you. The standard you should apply in deciding whether or not to have an active relationship with him is the same standard you should apply to all of the relationships in your life. You will not be mistreated or disrespected or manipulated. Your father does not currently meet that standard. My mother left my father because he was violent and abusive. I haven't had parents as an adult, and yet I carry them with me every day. They're like two empty bowls I've had to repeatedly fill on my own. I think your father will have the same effect on you. Even if you cut off ties with your dad, you won't fully escape him. He will be the bowl you'll have to fill again and again. When, after my mother died, I wrote my dad a letter saying that for me to have a relationship with him, he would first have to explain why he'd done the things he'd done. Well, he didn't write back. 17 years passed. And then one day the phone rang, and there it was. My father's name on the screen of my telephone.
Hello?
Hello?
Do you watch Rachel Ray?
Rachel Ray?
Rachel Ray, you know, the cookbook writer. She has a talk show.
Yeah. And on it went. The most flabbergasting conversation I've ever had. My father spoke to me as if we spoke every week. Yeah, as if nothing that had happened. As if my entire childhood didn't exist. The topics were recipes, poodles, cataracts, sunscreen. I hung up the phone 15 minutes later, utterly bewildered. He was not ill or delusional. He was my father, talking to me as if I was his daughter. As if he had a right. But he didn't. For all those years, without him in my life, I always thought of him on my birthday. How on my birthday, he must have held me in his hands and thought his baby was a miracle. He must have believed he could be a better person than he'd been before. A few days after that phone call, he sent me a chatty note over email. When I replied, I said what I'd said in the letter I'd written to him 17 years before, that I would consider having a relationship with him only after we'd spoken about our shared past. He replied, inquiring what it was I wanted to know. I wrote the most loving, painful, and forgiving letter of my life. Then I pressed send. My father's reply came so quickly it seemed impossible that he'd read the whole thing. In enraged words, he wrote that I should never contact him again, and that he was glad to be finally rid of me. I didn't cry. I laced on my running shoes and went out my front door and walked through my neighborhood to a park and up a big hill. I didn't stop walking until I got all the way to the top. Then I sat down on a bench that looked over the city. Oh, I had this feeling you get. There's no word for this feeling. It's when you're simultaneously happy and sad and angry and grateful and accepting and appalled and every other possible emotion all smashed together and amplified. Why is there no word for this feeling? I sat there for so long on that bench, looking at the sky and the land and the trees, thinking, my father. My father! He is finally rid of me! Oh, perhaps healing is the word, and we don't want to believe that. We want to believe the word healing is more pure and perfect, like a baby on its birthday. And when we're holding it in our hands, we will be better people than we've been before. Like we have to be. Yours, Sugar.
Dear Sugar, do you ever read the comments after you've posted a response to a letter?
I'm a writer posting things online. I try to avoid reading the comments. Yes, I read all the comments.
I wanted to tell you I had this hot dream about you, even though I don't know what you look like, if your hair is straight or curly, if you're curvy or skinny, but it didn't matter because you were a woman and we were getting down.
Okay.
Come on, who are you, Sugar? It is driving me crazy. I want to know. What would a photograph of you look like?
A woman, standing naked in the light of day. She's flawed, but okay with that. Her hands are obscuring her face. You see everything but one thing.
Why can't we see that one thing? Why can't we see your face and know who you are?
You know who I am. I reveal myself to you in every column.
If you had one piece of advice for people in their 20s, what would it be?
Oh, be about 10 times more generous than you believe yourself capable of being.
Why?
Because in your 20s, you're becoming who you're going to be, so you might as well not be an asshole.
What is something weird that happened to you?
Something weird. Oh, I was hiking up a mountain on a trail with a little snow in some places in New Mexico. There was no one around for hours until I met two people, a man and a woman who had just met each other. We were three strangers who met on a mountain. We got to talking and found out that we all had the same birthday. Not only that, we were born in 3 consecutive years. While we were talking, 3 feathers blew up to us on the snow. We picked them up. That was weird.
Can you please tell us some of the dumb things you've done?
Thank you. Heroin, meth, the withdrawal method. A blowjob by a lake. Yeah. An idiot punk at a Beastie Boys concert.
What is a piece of advice you've given that's taken you some time to learn?
Oh. If the word forgiveness is written on one side of a coin, then on the other side of the coin is written the word no. No is golden. No is the good kind of power. It's the way emotionally evolved people live their lives. It's a way to set boundaries. No means you're choosing what to share.
Will you tell us your name?
No.
Will you ever tell us your name?
Yes.
It doesn't matter to me who you are. Where did you get that big heart of yours?
From my mother. From my father. From a crack in the sidewalk where a flower grew. From the blowjob by the lake. From the lake. From saying yes to strange offers. from all of you.
Dear Sugar, for many years I stole compulsively. I blame myself, even though I was on a cocktail of psychotropic drugs for depression, anxiety, and insomnia. I stole a pair of jeans from a friend, flower pots from my neighbor, money from a girlfriend's wallet. I blame myself, even though I grew up with my abusive mother screaming at me that I was a liar, a cheat, and a thief. I was not only trying to fulfill my mother's prophecy, but maybe even trying to get people to hate and reject me for being a liar, a cheat, and a thief. I hate myself, okay? I loathe myself for what I've done. I wonder if I should confess to the friends who will surely reject me. Sugar, can I forgive myself without admitting to people how I wronged them? Please help. Signed, Thief.
Dear Thief, on a warm spring day several years ago, I saw I was down to my last 20 cents. So I put nearly everything I owned out on a lawn. My thrift store dresses, my knickknacks and dishes. Customers came and went throughout the day, but my primary companions were a group of 11-year-old boys who flitted about, inquiring how much this and that cost, even though they didn't have the money to purchase. Late in the day, they told me one of the boys had stolen something from me. An empty retro leather camera case I'd once used as a purse. It was a small thing, a hardly worth bothering about item, but still, I asked the accused boy if he'd taken it.
No!
When he returned the next day, he was wearing a big gray sweatshirt. When he thought I wasn't looking, he pulled the camera case from beneath his shirt and placed it back where it had been sitting the day before.
Your thing is back.
Good. Why did you steal it?
I didn't.
It was a sunny day. A few of the boys sat with me on the porch steps, telling me about their lives. The boy who'd stolen the camera case showed me his bicep and insisted in a tone more belligerent than the others that the chains he wore around his neck were pure gold. Why did you steal my camera case?
I didn't. I just took it home for a while I got money.
The day went by and soon it was just the two of us. He told me about the mother he rarely saw, about his much older siblings, about the kind of hot car he was going to buy the instant he turned 16. Why did you steal my camera case?
Because I was lonely.
There are very few times anyone has been that self-aware and nakedly honest as that boy was with me in that moment. When he said what he said, I almost fell off the steps. Perhaps because when he told about himself, he told me something about myself. Oh, I used to steal things too. I took a compact, a blue eyeshadow from my cousin, a pretty sweater from a school friend, a figurine of a white dog with its head askew. I didn't know why I stole things I still can't properly say, but because I was lonely seems about the rightest thing I've ever heard. I think you were lonely too, and lonely isn't a crime. I don't think the path to wholeness is walking backwards up the trail. The people you stole from don't need you to fess up, but you're so very invested in your self-loathing. If you perpetually condemn yourself for being a liar and a thief, does that make you good? I hate the thief part of my narrative, too. I struggled with whether or not I should talk about it here. It's the first time I've written about it. Ever. And I've written about all sorts of other bad things I've done, promiscuous sex, drugs. This seems worse. But it's who I am. It's who you are. Can we forgive ourselves? Years after I'd stopped stealing, I was sitting alone by a river. I found myself thinking about all the things I'd taken, and before I even knew what I was doing, I began picking a blade of grass for each one and dropping it into the water. I am forgiven, I thought, as I let go of the blade that stood in for the blue eyeshadow. I am forgiven, I thought, for the pretty sweater. I am forgiven for the dog figurine, and so on, until I'd let all the bad things I'd done flow right on down the river, and I'd said, I am forgiven. So many times it felt like I actually was. Oh, it doesn't mean I didn't grapple with it again. You have to say, I am forgiven, over and over, until it becomes the story you believe about yourself. Every last one of us has the capacity to do that. You included. I hope you will. I don't know whatever came of that lonely boy at my yard sale. I hope he's made wrong what was wrong inside of him. He's made right what was wrong inside of him. When I closed down the sale, the camera case he'd stolen from me was still sitting there. I held it out to him. You want this?
Yes, please.
Yours, Sugar.
Dear Sugar, 1. It's taken me weeks to compose this letter, and even still I can't get it right. The only way to get it out is to make a list instead of write a letter. 2, I don't have a definite question for you. I'm a sad, angry man whose son died. I want him back. That's all I ask for, and it isn't a question. 3, nearly 4 years ago, a drunk driver drove through a red light at my son at full speed. The dear boy I loved more than life itself was dead before the paramedics even got to him. He was 22, my only child. 4, I'm a father, without being a father. Most days it feels like my grief is going to kill me. Or maybe it already has. I'm a living dead dad. 5, your column has helped me go on. I have faith in my version of God, and I pray every day, and the way I feel when I'm in my deepest prayer is the way I feel when I read your words. 6, I see a psychologist regularly, and I'm not clinically depressed or on medication. 7, suicide has occurred to me, but I can't do it, because it would be a betrayal of my values, and also the values I instilled in my son. 8, I have good friends and family who are supportive, and even my ex-wife and I have become close friends again since our son's death. 9, I have a good job and my health. 10, I'm going on with things in a way that makes it appear like I'm adjusting to life without my son. The fact is, I'm living a private hell. 11, sometimes the pain is so great I simply lie in my bed and wail. 12, I can't stop thinking about my son. 13, I can't stop thinking about the things my son would be doing now if he were alive, and also the things I did with him when he was young. 14, I hate the man who killed my son. For his crime, he was incarcerated 18 months, then released. He wrote me a letter of apology, but I barely scanned it. I ripped it into pieces and threw it in the garbage. 15, I fear you will choose not to answer my letter because you haven't lost a child. 16, I fear if you choose to answer my letter, people will make critical comments about you, saying you have no right to speak to this matter because you have not lost a child. 17, I pray you never lose a child. 18, I will understand if you choose not to answer my letter. Most people, kind as they are, don't know what to say to me, so why should you? 19, I'm writing to you because the way you have written about your grief over your mother dying so young has been meaningful to me. 20, what can you say to me? 21, how do I go on? 22. How do I become human again? Signed, Living Dead Dad.
Dear living dead dad, one, I don't know how you go on without your son. I only know you do, and you have, and you will. Two, your shattering letter is proof of that. Three, you don't need me to tell you how to be human again. You are there in all your humanity, shining unimpeachably before every person reading these words right now. Four, I am so sorry for your loss. I am so sorry for your loss. I am so sorry for your loss. Five, you could stitch together a quilt with all the times that has been and will be said to you. You could make a river of consolation words, but they won't bring your son back. They won't stop that man from getting into his car and careening through that red light at the precise moment your son was in his path. 6, you'll never keep that man from getting into that car. 7, when you peel back the rage and you peel back the thoughts of suicide and you peel back the man in the car, at the center is your pure father love that is stronger than anything. 8, and no one can touch that love or alter it or take it away from you. That your love for your son belongs only to you. 9, small things have saved me. How much I love my mother, even after all these years. How powerfully I carry her within me. My grief is tremendous, but my love is bigger. So is yours. You're not grieving your son's death because it was ugly or unfair. You're grieving it because you loved him truly. The beauty in that is greater than the bitterness of his death. 10, I keep imagining you lying on your bed and wailing, and I keep thinking that as hard as it is for you to do, it's time for you to go silent. To lift your head from the bed and listen to what's there in the wake of your wail. 11, it's your life. The one you must make in the obliterated place that is now your world, where everything you used to be is simultaneously erased and omnipresent. Where you are forevermore a living dead dad. 12. The literal translation of the word obliterate is being against the letters. It was impossible for you to write me a letter, so you made me a list instead. 13. The obliterated place is equal parts destruction and creation. The obliterated place is pitch black, and it is bright light. It is water, and it is parched earth. It is mud and it is manna. The work of deep grief is making a home there. 14, more will be revealed. Your son hasn't yet taught you everything he has to teach you. He's taught you how to love like you've never loved before. He's taught you how to suffer like you've never suffered before. Perhaps the next thing he has to teach you is acceptance. And the thing after that, forgiveness. 15, forgiveness bellows from the bottom of the canoe. There are stories you'll learn if you're strong enough to go there. One of them might cure you. 16, We say, I can't go on, instead of saying, we hope we won't have to. You have the power to withstand this sorrow. We all do. 17, you go on by doing the best you can. You go on by being generous. You go on by offering comfort to others who can't go on. You go on by allowing the unbearable days to pass and allowing the pleasure in other days. You go on by finding a channel for your rage and another for your love. 18. When my son was 6, he said people die at all ages. He said it without any fear or anguish. It has been healing to me to accept in a very simple way that my mother's life was 45 years long, that there was nothing beyond that. 19. When you say you experience my writing as sacred, what you are touching is the place within me that is my mother. Sugar is the place I built in my is the temple I built in my obliterated place. God, I'd give it all back. The fact is, my grief has taught me things. It required me to suffer. It compelled me to reach. 20, your grief has taught you too. Living dead dad, your son was your greatest gift in his life, and he is your greatest gift in his death, too. Receive it. Let your dead boy be your most profound revelation. 21, think my son's life was 22 years long. Breathe in. 22, think my son's life was 22 years long. Breathe out. 23. There is no 23. 24. Create something of him. Make it beautiful. Yours, Sugar.
Dear Sugar, I heard that you will be revealing your name soon. Is this true? Will we finally know who you are? Signed, Hopeful.
Dear Hopeful, there is a common assumption that by not revealing my name, I'm protecting my privacy. Or it's freeing to write anonymously. But what's freeing is that you can read my responses without the barriers of whatever preconceptions you might have about my age, ethnicity, or my achievements. Not knowing my name allows you to have a more pure vision of me. Oh, when I took on Sugar, I wrote the only way I know, and that is with radical sincerity and open arms. But what has been the most surprising is how much more you all have given to me. You gave me love.
Love. Love. Love. Love.
So much love. Your story spilled into mine, and I spilled mine back into you. Sugar is not just me. We created something together. We are all Sugar. I know you, and you know me. I've revealed the most intimate details of my life. So, keeping my name a secret is no longer important. My name is Cheryl Strayed. Yes, I am Sugar. And so are all of you. Yours, Sugar.
Meaning to ask you,
It's really a simple question.
It's something I've wondered about.
what advice would you give your younger self?
Love you.
Dear younger self, stop worrying about whether you're fat. You're not fat. Actually, you're a little bit fat, but who gives a shit? Feed yourself. The people worthy of your love will love you more for this.
Those adults you thought were old and stupidly saddled with jobs and kids and cars were once just as hip and pompous as you are now.
Oh, in the middle of the night, in the middle of your 20s, when a friend crawls naked into your bed, straddles you, and says, "You should run away from me before I devour you," believe her.
Don't lament so much about how your career is going to turn out. You don't have a career, you have a life. Keep the faith. Do the work. The useless days will add up to something. The shitty waitressing jobs, the writing in your journal, the long meandering walks, the hours spent reading poetry and novels and dead people's diaries and wondering about sex and God and whether you should shave under your arms or not. These things are your becoming.
When that sweet but fucked up gay couple invites you to their cool house to try ecstasy, say no.
You cannot convince people to love you. This is an absolute rule. Real love moves freely in both directions, and don't waste your time on anything else.
Most things will be okay eventually, but not everything will be. Sometimes you'll put up a good fight and lose. Sometimes you'll hold on hard, only to realize there's no choice but to let go. Acceptance is a small, quiet room.
When a man kisses you in the doorway of a Mexican restaurant and says that kiss didn't mean anything because he's not looking for a relationship right now, just smile and kiss him back. Your daughter will have his sense of humor. Your son will have his eyes.
There are some things you can't understand yet. Your life will be a great and continuous unfolding. You will come to know things that can only be known with the wisdom of age and the grace of years. Most of those things have to do with forgiveness.
On Christmas, at the very beginning of your 20s, when your mother gives you a warm winter vest she saved 4 months to buy, don't look at her skeptically when she tells you she thought the vest was perfect for you.
Don't hold it up and say that you don't really wear vests and that it's too puffy and possibly even too warm.
Your mother will be dead by spring. That vest will be the last gift she gave you.
For the rest of your life, you will regret the small thing you didn't say. Say thank you.
During the era in which you've gotten yourself ridiculously tangled up with heroin, you'll be riding the bus one hot afternoon thinking what a worthless piece of crap you are. A little girl will get on the bus holding the strings of 2 purple balloons. She'll offer you one, but you won't take it because you believe you no longer have the right to such tiny, beautiful things. You're wrong. You do. Yours, Sugar.
To turn will be our delight, till by turning